tax and get rid of the liberal energy cap. We need 6 months approvals in order to take back energy security and energy sovereignty.
We can summarize that. He wants to conclude
Sorry,
as much as
Mr.
possible.
Carney, hang on.
Last
word to Mr. Carney in this segment, please.
Thank you very much. You know, I was born in Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories, just north of what the oil sands became. When I was born and when I was growing up in Edmonton, early days, it was a fairy tale, quote unquote. But you know what happened? Canadian ingenuity, Canadian engineers, Canadian governments, both the federal government and the Alberta government got together and converted this.
The worst pollution
if I may.
The worst pollution
may I finish?
in the
May I
world.
finish? May I?
10 more seconds to finish, please. Let him finish his point.
That's the opportunity we have. That's the opportunity we have in carbon capture. That's the opportunity we have in small modular reactors. That's the opportunity we have in hydrogen and beyond. This country can be a clean energy superpower. My government will help deliver it.
And that is time for this segment. Gentlemen, let us go to our final theme, which is called Leading in a Crisis.
Canadians know how to weather a storm. Canadians know how to get through a difficult time.
If, at the end of the day, we end up with the balance of power, Quebec is safer than it could be in any other scenario.
Now is not a time for weakness. Now is the time to take back control.
Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves.
Okay, leading in a crisis is a pretty broad theme that allows us to explore many different avenues here, so let's get to it. Mr. Carney, you get the first question this time. We haven't balanced a budget in this country in 17 years, and 10 of those years were under your party. You have pledged to get us to a balanced budget in 3 years. Question is, how?
So let me put this in the context of leading in a crisis, which is, in a crisis, you got to plan for the worst. Worst is that the U.S. actually does want to take us over. Secondly, you got to have a plan to build, and that'll include a fiscal plan, and I will get to that in a second. The third thing is you need to respond in a crisis with overwhelming force. You need to think big. You need to move rapidly. The things we've been discussing today are a subset of what we can and should do as a nation, and we can deliver. And government can play a role, but its role has to be catalytic. And so our approach is that we will slow the rate of spending. It's been growing at 9% a year, operational spending, program spending, away from transfers individual, 9% a year. We'll slow that to 2%. We will focus on a small amount of capital spending by the federal government in order to drive enormous private investment up to $500 billion by 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Ukraine surely constitutes a crisis. Leading in a time of crisis, Mr. Poilievre, question for you. If the United States withholds support from Ukraine going forward, do you believe Canada should commit more to assist?
I believe we should continue to support Ukraine. Our party supported donating missiles that the Canadian military was decommissioning. We supported funds and other armaments to back the Ukrainians in the defense of their sovereignty. We also need to rebuild our own Canadian military because the Russians want to make incursions into our waters. We'll be buying 4 massive Arctic icebreakers. I'll be opening the first Arctic base since the Cold War in Canada, CFB Iqaluit. We're going to double the size of the Arctic Rangers and fill the vacancies in our Canadian armed forces. We need a change to rebuild our military, which has been so disintegrated under the cuts and the mismanagement of the last 10 years. But we can have a change because we have the best soldiers, sailors, and airmen in the world, and they will have full backing from my government if you give me the honor of becoming Prime Minister.
I may come back to that one in the open forum because I'm not sure we got an answer about Ukraine on that one, but okay. Going on. Monsieur Blanchet.
The answer was yes.
We'll get more details, perhaps, as we go forward. Wow. Monsieur Blanchet, given the U.S. trade war, should any talk of a referendum on Quebec independence be put on pause?
That one is easy. It will happen only after the negotiation is over, and that's a good thing. I want to say I support the idea. We must help Ukraine, but we also must help the civilians of Gaza, and we must destroy Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. You know what? I don't want to be the leader of Canada. You will understand that. I don't want to be Prime Minister. But I can offer to be a partner, a responsible partner, a collaborative partner, if Quebec is respected in its differences, in its aluminum industry and lumberwood industry, and culture.
Holy shit, he
and
didn't say
French language,
aluminum.
and values of secularity of the state, which is the price to be paid in order to have real equality. Then, if we are respected, we will be a partner, and then even Canada will be stronger in its negotiation against Donald Trump. This is what I am offering. Respect us.
Mr. Singh, I watched last night's
I actually like this guy more and more.
debate. You seem very eager to talk about health care, so let's talk a little more health care right now. You have made many promises on health care. If a province says to you, we'll take your money for health care, but not your conditions on how to spend it, what do?
We've got to negotiate. We can't be giving away money without clear conditions. We're in a healthcare crisis right now, and a crisis that is hurting people across this country. People are waiting desperately in line in emergency rooms for hours and hours. Seniors are waiting for years and years to get the care that they need for surgeries that would remove pain or help them deal with mobility issues. We're in a serious crisis. Healthcare workers are burnt out. They are overstretched. And what we're seeing is more and more privatization, and that is hurting our public universal healthcare system. So we've got to fight back against it. We cannot allow our public money to go to a for-profit private clinic lining the pockets of a rich CEO or investors instead of going towards care. We need to make sure that we are investing in solutions where care gets to people, not profiting those at the very top. And so that's my commitment. I'm going to fight to make sure we defend our healthcare against the threats of Americanization and privatization.
Okay, we now go to open forum debate, and perhaps, Mr. Poilievre, you get the first word here. This might be a good time to put a little more flesh on the bone of what you think Canada could do for Ukraine if the U.S. backs out.
Yes, and my answer is that we should continue to support Ukraine. We don't need to follow the Americans in everything they do. When they're wrong, then we will stand on our own and with other allies. And with respect to Ukraine, that of course includes support with intelligence, equipment, armaments, but it also includes defunding Putin. Right now, Vladimir Putin has a monopoly on the European energy market because, frankly, the Liberals blocked exports of Canadian natural gas off the Atlantic coast. They blocked multiple projects. I would rapidly approve those projects on national security grounds so that we can actually ship Canadian natural gas over to Europe, break European dependence on Putin, defund the war, and turn dollars for dictators back into paychecks for our people.
Mr. Carney, you wanted to add?
Well, I want to go to the situation in Ukraine because it's very important. We've been a steadfast, Canada has been a steadfast ally, and Canadians have stepped up, welcoming Ukrainians into their homes and supporting them in other ways. In my first month as Prime Minister, we joined the coalition of the willing to support Ukraine as the U.S. stepped back. So led by France, the United Kingdom, with Ukraine number European nations, Australia, ourselves, New Zealand. That's an example of how the new world is going to be. Canada participating in these areas and helping. It also means open trade. Mr. Poilievre voted against free trade agreement with Ukraine. It means aid for Ukraine. Mr. Poilievre wants to cut foreign aid, including for Ukraine, or not. He didn't mention support for aid for Ukraine. We have to stand by them. We have to be there, and this government has been.
Mr. Singh.
New Democrats absolutely support standing with Ukraine, and will continue to do that. But I appreciate the opportunity in talking about leadership in crisis, talk about many of the crises that we're up against. And one of the crises we're up against in our country, with the threat of Donald Trump, with the threat of the trade war, and with the privatization and Americanization of our healthcare system, is the healthcare system. And what we have learned today, Mr. Carney mentioned slowing operation spending. That's a cut to services. He said his plan. He has a plan to balance the operating budget within 3 years. That's going to require massive cuts to spending. We calculated that at $43 billion in cuts. In fact, Rosemary Barton, when he was on the show on February 16th, he said he would cut spending. He said it would be in operations. He defined it as transfers in health.
To the channel.
And finally, longtime Liberal and former House Leader Karina Gould said that Mr. Carney's plans would mean massive cuts. That's the only way to achieve it. So, Mr. Carney, do you think it is leadership to cut health care at a time when it is in crisis? I think it is wrong. We can't do that.
We will not cut transfers for healthcare. We will not cut healthcare spending, full stop.
But
we'll
Mr.
have
Carney,
a detail, if I may.
Who do we believe, Mr. Carney, today or the one he spoke on Rosemary Barton's show on February 16th?
I did not.
The one that repeated again that he would cut spending?
If I may.
Who do we believe?
If I may. Consistently said, we'll preserve all transfers to the provinces, including the increases. We will preserve all the transfers to individuals, I won't detail them all, but they're there. So we're looking at addressing an operational spend, which is about $150 billion. We will address that. We will make it more efficient, and we will do it in 3 years, and we'll balance that budget.
Mr. Blanchet.
I am 6 minutes behind Mr. Carney, so I will speak a little bit longer. First, I will support any initiative which will bring Canada aligned with Europe and NATO in order to be stronger and facing new threats. Good. I believe that 2% won't be enough. I'm not more in favor of war than anybody else, but we have responsibilities, and our main ally is removing himself from the stage. So we have to step up. We have to do our part. I want to go somewhere else entirely, however. I want to ask Mr. Carney, if we're speaking about leadership here, if Quebec and Canada were to say, you are not being given a majority government, there will be more conservatives than you would like, maybe more New Democrats than you would like, and more people from the bloc than you would like. Will you accept, because you don't seem to be very eager about that, to deal with people which basically are more experienced than you are, as legitimate as you are, and would be more representative altogether than you would be being alone in your little kingdom? And I want also to
Your little kingdom.
to
I love it.
propose to you all guys that 1 week after the election, we all meet, whatever the result, and we start dealing with this crisis together, because this is what people, either they are from Alberta or Quebec or wherever, this is what people expect from us.
Mr. Carney, is that something you could get behind?
I really like this guy. I'm going to move to Quebec.
I look forward to meeting with everyone. You're welcome to come, Steve, if you'd like. Week after twice, but
That's not very respectful.
No, but
That's not very respectful.
I'm coming.
That's disrespectful.
On peut jaser un peu. Okay, I will.
Okay.
I
Oh,
come
he's
to
going
the
to speak in French now.
Yeah, okay. I'll come to the core. Look, in a crisis, yes, you need a team, and you need to bring the country along with you. So what I did in the first week was to bring the premiers together, meet with all the Indigenous leaders, and move forward in that context. Now the question is, who's going to lead out of this? Whoever leads out of this, if I may, Mr. Blanchet, merci, thank you. Whoever's going to lead out of this is going to need to work with all the provinces, work with Labour, work with Indigenous leaders, work with all Canadians to bring them forward in a united front. And if I'll make this last point, one of the things that has happened, which is a credit to those people,
Mohawk cigarettes.
is that Canadians are coming together. And it's our responsibility to meet the strength of Canadian unity.
Still lagging. I have one small point to make.
Yep.
You will be elected, if you are elected, in the parliament where there are other leaders. I don't know if he called you, or Mr. Poilievre, I don't know if he called you, but before yesterday, you have not spoken to me once, even if I proposed it so many times. But you say, I speak to provinces' leaders. You're not elected in provinces. You are in the parliament where people are to make decisions which might not always suit you. But this is democracy,
Blanchet, I'm
which
going
you
to
don't
jump
know
in.
too much about.
I'm going to jump in here because I'm noticing what the clock is saying, and you brought up Gaza earlier, and
Let
I
it
think
go.
our audience would be interested in hearing your views on the other major international crisis facing the
I just
world
want to
right
get
now.
this, before we get there, just to finish up on the healthcare, I just want to speak to healthcare workers right now who are deeply worried about the status of our healthcare system, to Canadians who believe and love our
wasting
universal
everyone's
public
time,
healthcare system, to
Jagmeet.
patients who are stressed out. If you're worried
Mr.
about
Singh.
which Mr. Carney to believe, the one today or the one who spoke on previous shows and said he would
Mr.
cut,
Singh, I
vote for
think-
New Democrats, and we will fight to defend our healthcare.
I think your
we will never
supporters
let
would really
anyone
like
cut
to
it.
hear what you have to say about this question, and we have less than 5 minutes for it here. What role should Canada play in the other major international crisis in this world, in the Middle East and the war in Gaza? Pierre Poilievre, would you start us off on that? What role can Canada play?
Well, first of all, we must condemn Hamas, and more importantly, the terror sponsors in Tehran who initiated the attacks, the horrific attacks of October 7th. We need to defeat the terrorists so that all the peoples of the world can live in peace and defend the right of, yes, Palestinians to have their own lives free from the oppression of Hamas dictators and Iranian intervention, while Israel has the ability to live in freedom and peace. But I also want to say, we need to get back to the Canadian tradition, which is that when people come to this country, they leave foreign conflicts behind. The rampaging riots targeting Jewish communities is utterly unacceptable, and it points to the growing chaos that we see on our streets after 10 years of incredibly irresponsible liberal policies of weak borders, of dividing people into groups, of saying one thing to one group and the opposite to another, dividing and conquering. We must end that division and unite our people so that everyone feels safe, and that when we come here, we put our foreign conflicts behind and we put Canada
people,
first.
Mr.
People
Singh,
come
please,
from
go
countries
ahead.
from around the world, and they care deeply about where they come from, and they should be able to do so. That's a part of being in our country, to have that freedom. Your treatment of Palestinians has been frankly disgusting. Your treatment of people who provide care and service for people in Gaza has been disgusting. On top of that, people in Israel and in Palestine deserve to live in peace and security. And Mr. Carney, to date, you've not acknowledged that what's going on in Gaza is now clearly become a genocide. It's important to call things out as they are, and you've not done that.
Mr. Carney.
We need to work, to go to your question, we need to work with our international partners, maximum pressure, maximum encouragement for an immediate
Maximum
ceasefire. That's the
bankers.
first thing. Encourage the return of all of the hostages. Resumption of humanitarian aid. My government put in place $100 million of humanitarian aid, which is ready to go. With respect to where this ultimately goes, yes, two-state solution, but it has to be a viable and free Palestinian state, living side by side in peace and security with the state of Israel. I will underscore one other thing. Mr. Poilievre rightly mentioned Iran, the Iranian sponsors in this region. We have to be clear-eyed about the fundamental risks of Iran and do everything with our international partners to check it and turn it.
Mr. Blanchet.
If we are to work together, we will have to be consistent. The Jewish community in Quebec and Canada is harassed by a very little minority of radical Islamists. And we don't do so much. The law in Canada says that somebody may invite people to be violent, to propose genocide against another people, if they can be hidden behind a religious motivation. They are in agreement with that, they are in agreement with that, they are in agreement with that. And we say it is a crime to invite people to violence and killing other people, and this is what is being done very often in Canada and Quebec with the approval of the Criminal Code of Canada. And we are saying this has to be changed. We have to change what we do before we want people elsewhere to change what they do.
Last minute in this segment, Mr. Poilievre.
This is about crises and leadership. And one crisis we have is in immigration. Because of this Liberal government's commitment to a radical policy called the Century Initiative, which seeks to bring our population up to 100 million people, they have allowed massive overcrowding in our communities. That has caused housing shortages, job shortages,
Don't blame immigration
and
for
healthcare
the
shortages.
fault of your government.
And if I could,
the fact that you did
sorry,
not
I
invest
didn't
in
interrupt
housing,
you. I did
you
not
built
interrupt
6
you,
homes.
sir. I did
That's
not
wrong.
interrupt you.
Don't
It is-
blame
I do not
people.
blame.
You're
If I could,
failures.
Let him finish.
I do not blame immigrants. I blame the Liberal government, which brought this policy on. And Mr. Carney wants to continue with the Century Initiative. This is crazy. We have to get back to normal levels of immigration, get rid of the fraud in the temporary immigration system, and ensure that the people who come here can arrive in numbers that we can house, employ, and care for. That's how it always was, and that's how we're going to restore
Thank
it.
you, Mr. Poilievre. That is our time for this segment. Those are our 5 themes, but we are not done yet. We are entering the next section of our debate tonight, what we're calling the leader's choice, something a little bit different. Each of you will get the chance to ask a question, any question, of any other leader. You can then debate the answer, and each one on one will last for 3 minutes. So, Mr. Singh, you have the first option here. Who do you want to ask your question of?
Mr. Carney,
Go for it.
Mr. Carney, as chair of Brookfield Investments, your company is one of the biggest tax dodgers in Canada. As chair, you approved decisions where Brookfield Investments bought up affordable homes, kicked out the tenants, and jacked up the rates. As prime minister, one of the first things you did was a tax cut that helped out mostly millionaires. And you have a plan to cut services for people. Now, I expect that of Mr. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. That's very much a conservative plan. But my concern is that doesn't sound like what people want for a Liberal leader. So my question to you is, Mr. Carney, whose side are you really on?
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Singh. I'm on the side of Canadians. I'm in this for Canadians. I work for Canadians.
But your track record doesn't show that, though.
No,
What an absolute stupid question. It's an answer that he's going to say, I'm for Canadians. Why would you ask a question that's going to allow him to answer it that way, to give him more support with people out there watching this?
well, I have a track record of public service for this country. Go back to something Mr. Blanchet referenced earlier.
That's correct.
Which
He
is,
wouldn't.
have I resolved any crises? We're in Quebec. If you ask anyone in the finance industry, if you ask anyone in government in Quebec in 2008, they'll know that I resolved the biggest crisis
We'll do
in
that?
Quebec. Yeah.
You won't have fun.
On y va. Good, but
60 million
But
of
may
dollars.
I?
Hang on,
But I-
hang
but
on,
I-
hang
but
on.
I'm
This
in
is for these
fairness
two only.
with Mr.
This is
Singh.
for these two.
Mr. Singh. Yes, I have had a long career in the private sector. I'm proud of that career. I've always acted with integrity, and it brings
liar.
me with experience that I can apply
But no one's
in this
questioning your
moment,
integrity,
in moment
sir.
of crisis.
And you certainly have served the country.
As a government directly.
Whoa.
So we've gone directly to workers using all of our proceeds from the tariffs, committing all of them for workers, the workers most affected
the
industries.
employment
affected.
insurance isn't high
unlike
enough.
others, unlike others who
But the amount,
plan
though,
to
let's talk about the
use them to cut taxes. We are
The amount
focused
of
on.
the EI is not high enough, though. You have to accept that. Right now, it's
There
only
will
covering-
be additional programs. I am fully confident that the next government, whatever government is formed, or certainly if I'm in the next government, we will make additional programs.
But you didn't do that
for
so
those
far,
work-
though.
Well, I can't.
You could have.
Couldn't. Well, you couldn't, given
could
that we're in
have
an election
increased- you
process.
could have increased the
may
amount, though.
May I make a core point here, if I may, which is that when you think about workers here today and people watching at home, particularly younger people, there is an enormous opportunity in the trades, in the skilled trades. We are going to build this country in a way that has not been seen before. We are literally talking about hundreds of thousands, not jobs, but careers
But I
in
think
the
people are
trade.
worried, Mr.
And
Carney,
that's
that-
why we're investing in apprenticeships
build
and
a whole bunch
mid-career.
of
But I think
homes for
people
the
are worried, Mr.
immigrants,
Carney,
and
if
then
New
there'll be no more
Democrats
work.
aren't there to force Liberals to make sure they remember about people they will forget.
Gentlemen, that is time. Thank you for that. Monsieur Blanchet, you have the next question. To whom would you like to put it?
Mr. Carney, you avoided quite
Everything.
I would say, skillfully the questions of Mr. Singh. But first, let me correct something. In 2008, not so much by your decision, $10 billion were given to car industry in Ontario, while 60 millions, not billions of dollars, were lent to lumberwood throughout the whole of Canada. I don't believe that's the right way to manage a crisis, since you did not recoup the money from the car industry. Then, you have been the manager of Brookfield. It's supposed to be a green investment fund, but we now know that 50% of the investments of Brookfield is in fossil fuel. It's not so green. You seem to want to support oil and gas industry. That's interesting. You want to support prefab housing, and it's also in the investments of Brookfield, but not in Canada. You want to support nuclear power, smaller reactors, which are more dangerous, by the way, and Brookfield has investments in Westinghouse. You have hidden the money of Brookfield in Bermuda and Cayman Island, $30 billion. Billions of dollars lost for Canada.
Mr.
You
Blanchet,
are
you gotta give
having
him
your
some time to answer.
taxes being paid by families, workers, elders in Canada and Quebec instead of paying your own taxes. So I want to know, will you, before the election, reveal all the details of your assets, as Mr. Mr. Singh has done, as Mr. Poiliev has done, and as I have done. We have a right
Okay,
to
let's
know
let him answer.
under those circumstances.
Let's let him answer.
Well, the first thing is I want to say a word about. I'll say a word about Brookfield.
I'm going to answer the question.
You know, this is a Canadian success story. It is the largest infrastructure investor and developer in the world. It is one of the largest, if not the largest, developer of renewable power in the world. And who benefits from that? That's Canadian pensioners. That's Quebec pensioners. That is teachers. That is firefighters. It is.
Most of our pensions are in India. Most of our pensions are our stocks in India.
A series of people, including individuals on this stage, benefit from that. Now, always acted with integrity, served the shareholders of Brookfield when I was there. I have left that. I have followed all the rules well in advance.
let's
I have followed
reveal
all
your
the
assets.
rules well in
Let's
advance.
reveal your assets like
And-
we all did.
And working for the people of Canada.
What do you own? Why
And that is
don't
time,
you tell
gentlemen.
Canadians and
That is
Quebecers
time.
what you own?
Monsieur Blanchet, we're moving on to Mr. Poiliev now, who has his opportunity to ask the question of whomever he'd like here, and that will be?
Mr. Carney, but if I could
Look him up.
begin by setting the stage. The choice in this election is, after a lost Liberal decade of rising cost and crime and a falling economy under America's thumb, do we want to elect them to a fourth term? Or do we want to change? Change so that you can afford food and homes. Change so that you can be safe on your street, and change so that your paycheck grows faster than your cost of living. Change with a new conservative government. Because Mr. Carney has not changed. Mr. Carney, in 2020, it was recorded, you began advising Justin Trudeau. It's still on the Liberal Party website today that you are Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. They might want to update your website on that. On June 3rd of 2021, you said that
Write that
inflation
down, buddy.
would be a sign of economic progress. And you advised governments, including Justin Trudeau's, your Liberal government, to print money, which led to the worst inflation crisis
Ever.
in a generation. Now, that means that mothers went to bed with empty fridges and empty bank accounts, worried how they'd feed their kids, that seniors worried they'd be evicted from their homes, that young people
seniors worry
believe
evicted
they'd
from
never
their
be
homes.
able to own a home in the first place. Now, in retrospect, that you look back on the Liberal decisions that you advised Justin Trudeau to take, will you look at the camera in the eye and apologize to the many people who suffered as a result of the inflationary policies that you advised Justin Trudeau to implement?
You know, I said earlier, but I'm going to say it again. I know you want to be running against Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau isn't here.
Are you
I
denying you
am
were his
here.
economic advisor?
I did not provide any of that advice. I did not provide any of that
It's
advice.
on the Liberal Party
I'm
website.
sorry. Well,
Are you accusing your Liberal Party of lying about your role?
This is-
Because it says today, you can
this
go to the
is-
Liberal Party website now, and it says that you
I
were
think
Justin Trudeau's economic advisor.
the way you judge someone, in my view, is how they act, what they do when they have responsibility. Twice I was a central bank governor, and in both cases, if I may, in both
He won't
cases
answer
when
the
I was
questions.
responsible for inflation was less than 2%. I'll add that when I was here responsible
Sir.
for the Bank of Canada, inflation was less than 2%. Our dollar was at parity. That is the kind of success that I can deliver for this country coming out of this crisis. And what is at stake here?
You were the
What is at
economic
stake here?
advisor
What is
to
at
Justin
stake
Trudeau
here?
that gave
If
us the
we
worst
bring it back,
inflation that we have had in a generation, because the
Could I bring
policies
it
that you
back? Could I
implemented
bring
and
it
those
back?
of the MPs that are
I'm
still
going to bring
in
it
your
back
ministry.
to the
Fellow Canadians,
crisis which
the
we
last 10
face.
years has been about the Liberals. The next 10 years should be about you.
And that's time. Mr. Carney, the good news is the next
Liberals.
question is yours.
Well, I'm going to ask myself.
Not delivered. Those two guys.
Actually, I'm going to ask a question which has been troubling me, and it's troubling me because, you know, we are in a very dangerous and divided world.
Who is it to?
I'm going to ask a question of Mr. Poiliev. Why not? We're in a dangerous and divided
That's the
world. We
biggest
talked
threat.
earlier about the challenges in the Middle East, the threats from Iran,
said it.
Threats from Russia, Russia's aggression in Ukraine. We have the threats from China, which I raised. We have the United States, which is fundamentally changing its security relationships, its commercial relationships. We have all this. And in the context of that, everyone on this stage, Mr. Blanchet, Mr. Singh, myself, we have our top secret security clearance. We have our top secret security clearance. I got mine within 3 weeks. It wasn't hard, but I felt it was important that I had it so I could be in a position to be informed about that dangerous world and take decisions at. And Mr. Poilievre, it is now 950 days.
He needs to flip the switch here, and he needs to answer and respond about the Chinese MPs that he didn't fire and didn't put down.
If my numbers are right, since you've had the opportunity to get your top secret security clearance and you've refused. Why?
Well, first of all, I have got my security clearance when I was a minister. I got top secret clearance at the time, so there's no problem getting that. But when the government made this recent offer, they said that if I got the secret security clearance briefings, that I would be gagged under the security law, and I could be prosecuted if I spoke freely about matters of foreign interference. Now, given that Canada has experienced Chinese interference by Beijing, the government of China, in 2 consecutive elections, I needed to do my job to speak freely without fear of prosecution. And that was not something I would be allowed to do. Even Thomas Mulcair, the former leader of the NDP, said that when he was the leader of the opposition, he never would have accepted the kind of gag order that your government and Mr. Trudeau's government was attempting to impose on me. And it's good that I'd made that decision, because it has allowed me to speak freely about things like the case where one of your candidates, sir, actually said that he wanted to send a political opponent to China under a bounty threatening his life or imprisonment, and you refused to get rid of him. Now, it might have something to do with the fact that you went to China not long ago to get a $250 million loan for your company, but the reality is you refused to stand up for a Canadian who was being threatened by a foreign government, and I was able to speak freely on that matter because I refused the gag order that the Liberal government attempted to impose on me.
Well, there's a couple of interesting things. I think people at home have seen a robust debate here, and it's been a robust campaign, and it has not stopped Mr. Blanchet or Mr. Singh at times during his campaign by making challenges with respect to these issues. So one can address it. I will observe, as someone with a top secret security clearance, that China is not the only country that is accused of foreign interference. And
gentlemen, that is time
we'll leave
for
it
the
at
segment. That's our time. Now, closing statements are still a few minutes down the road, so we have a little bit of time for some quick hit Q&As for each of you right now. Short questions, 45 seconds, please, on the answers, and we're going to go left to right as I look at you right now. Mr. Poilievre, you get the first question. To the best of my knowledge, you have not offered a hard timeline, as the other parties have, to meet Canada's NATO commitment of 2% spending on defense. When would you hit that target?
My aim will be to 2030. That said, when we renegotiate our trade deal with the U.S., I know it's their priority to see us increase our military budget. One of the things I will say to the Americans is the more free trade, tariff-free free trade we have, the faster we can rebuild our military in Canada and reassert our sovereignty. And we will use that money to have heavy icebreakers in the north, Poseidon aircraft, fighter jets, a new base in the north, double the Arctic Rangers, fill the vacancies in the armed forces, and rebuild the warrior spirit that characterized our military since the birth of our country. We will rebuild our forces, and we will stand behind our veterans.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. Mr. Carney, your question. You have cut both the consumer carbon tax and the capital gains tax increase that you inherited from your predecessor. Is that an admission that the Liberals made life less affordable for Canadians?
I think let me give you the rationale behind both of those changes. First, with respect to the consumer carbon tax, in effect, it'd become too divisive for Canadians. Canadians received rebates. On the whole, they received more than the tax actually was, but some had represented that it was a tax without a rebate. It became divisive. It didn't serve its purpose. It made a relatively modest contribution to overall climate goals. I got rid of it. First act made Canadians whole. Secondly, but with respect to the capital gains tax, it's come up again. I'll be quick. This is a fundamental issue. We need to build this country. Builders, innovators, entrepreneurs need to be rewarded. That's why I brought it back.
And that's time. Thank you. Mr. Singh, would you change the existing cap on immigration?
I've said that the level of immigration, first of all, we need immigration. It's fundamentally important to our country. And we speak to any small business owner, you speak to people here in Quebec, you speak to farmers. It's fundamentally important. A couple of things, though, we know we need to be able to set the amount of folks that we welcome to our country at a level that it meets our needs. So I would ensure that we've got an expert panel that makes that determination based on our economic needs. We also know that we should be very clear that the lack of investment from Liberals and Conservatives resulted in the fact that we have a shortage in housing. That's something that we've got to fix. I should also point out that if you are worried about the cuts being proposed by Liberals and Conservatives, vote for New Democrats. We'll fight back to protect Canadians and make sure that we've got the right immigration levels.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. That's time. Mr. Blanchet, Quebec, I believe, is now the only province with a carbon tax. Do you think that's fair?
It's not entirely true. It's not a tax. What Quebec has is a system by which we invite big emission companies, I don't know how to translate that, to reduce their emissions. If they do not, then they have to pay. It goes into a fund which is invested then in reducing emissions. Our partner is California, which makes this a huge deal about reducing emissions. This is what we do. This is to be compared to what Europe does. And by the way, Europe would impose tariffs on Canadian oil if it ever got there. We're quite proud of that. And we have to be responsible because this is much less expensive than doing nothing to fight climate change.
That's time. We're going to do another set of quick hits here, left to right again, and 30 seconds this time. Monsieur Poilievre, you've previously promised to defund the CBC as one of your very first acts as Prime Minister. Is that still the plan?
Yes, CBC will continue to operate as a self-funded, Canadian-owned and controlled non-for-profit that raises money like other media organizations through sponsorships, subscriptions, advertising, licensing fees, and countless other things that will ensure Canadians who still want to listen and view its content will be able to do so. And at the same time, we'll allow freedom of the press so that everybody has their voice heard and they can make their own decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. The next question to you, 30 seconds. Would you remove some of Canada's legal tax avoidance loopholes that companies that you have worked for have used?
Look, I think that what we need to do is undertake a comprehensive review of our corporate tax system and do that on the basis of the right principles. We've got to have fairness, transparency, sustainability, and competitiveness. So we need a tax system, a corporate tax system, including being part of an international minimum corporate tax through the OECD.
And that is time. Mr. Singh, the question for you is, if you hold the balance of power after this election is over, what would your price be to support another party?
We've laid out our priorities. We want to make sure we bring down the cost of groceries, build homes that people can afford. I can also tell you that we would defend CBC, unlike Mr. Poilievre, who wants to cut it, and we would close tax loopholes and offshore tax havens, even though Mr. Carney didn't respond to that, and selling stocks and shares to make profits and then having less taxes on that is not hard work. And so those aren't the job creators. The people who are job creators are the hardworking men and women that contribute to our economy.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Monsieur Blanchet, kind of the same question. If you hold the balance of power in the next minority parliament, if it is that, what would be the price of your support?
Respect for Quebec. That's quite easy. I don't want to go against what Canada wants to do for itself, but I don't want Canada to impose an economic vision or a multiculturalist vision on Quebec, which is different in terms of language and values and secularity and equality between people. So I want to be a partner, and if Quebec is respected, Canada has nothing to fear from the bloc because we vote for what is good for Quebec. It only has to be good for Quebec.
Thank you, Monsieur Blanchet. Now, we have one last question for each of you. We'll go right to left this time as I look at you. Bit of an offbeat question. Monsieur Blanchet, what is your biggest regret during this campaign?
That's a very good question. I'm not very fond of regrets, I would say, but we should have started sooner to see that we had to create the environment for a deal in which Quebec and Canada would be, one bigger than the other, but partners to be stronger in front of Mr. Trump and showing that maybe nobody here is the partner to let go alone without being surveyed or controlled or supervised by a Quebec voice.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchet. Same question, Mr. Singh. Your biggest regret of this campaign?
Not being able to meet as many people as I would love to have. It's a short campaign, and so I can't get to as many communities that I wanted to. I think one of the honors of my job is to be able to meet people and to hear their stories, and then to take their stories and concerns and bring them to Ottawa and to fight for those people. And so I want you to know, even though I haven't made it to your community, I'm going to fight like hell to make sure that you're represented, that we never let any government cut our health care, that we defend the values that we care so deeply about. We make my life more affordable. That's my commitment to you. Even if I didn't get to see you, that's my commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Carney, same question. Biggest regret of the campaign?
To be honest, it's the same answer. This is an astonishing country. It is an amazing country. And the opportunity and the responsibility that comes with it of being with Canadians, hearing their stories, their challenges, drawing strength and ideas from them, and working to be part of the solution is the greatest honor of my life. But the regret is that it is also a big country, and it is a short period of time.
Mr. Poilievre, last word to you.
I actually agree with these two gentlemen. I had a rule that at all my rallies, even when they're really big, I would stand in front of a flag and greet every single person and hear their stories and learn their struggles. And that was always touching to me, that they would put their faith in me or in any of us.
Yeah.
But we've been in such a rush because we have to get off to the next event, so we haven't been able to stop and do that. And I want you to know out there, I haven't forgot about you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. It is
So
time now for
political.
closing statements, and prior to the debate, you drew lots as to which order we would go in. And Mr. Singh, you get the first word on a closing statement.
Certainly, thank you. Because you voted for New Democrats, we were able to build this country that we love. Universal health care and pensions, because you voted for us. Because you voted for New Democrats, we were able to fight to bring in dental care, pharmacare, and childcare. Because you voted for us, because you supported us. You have the power with your vote to send more New Democrats to Ottawa, to continue that fight, to make sure that no government cuts the things that we hold dear, like our health care, to ensure that we can do everything possible to make life more affordable by making it more affordable to buy your groceries and to get a home. I'm asking for your support in this election so that I can continue to fight to defend the things that make Canada, Canada, the things that we hold dear, the things that make us proud to be Canadian.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Carty.
We are facing the biggest crisis of our lifetimes. Donald Trump is trying to fundamentally change the world economy, the trading system. But really what he's trying to do to Canada, he's trying to break us so the U.S. can own us. They want our land, they want our resources, they want our water, they want our country. And we're all going to stand up against Donald Trump. I'm ready. I've managed crises over the years. I've built strong economies. We will fight back with counter tariffs. We will protect our workers and those businesses, and we will build the strongest economy. We will build Canada strong. I'm asking for your support, the honor of doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Monsieur Blanchet.
For 260 years and a little bit more, les Français, devenus des Canadiens, devenus des Canadiens français, devenus des Québécois, you have tried to have them become Canadians like all Canadians. But to no avail, we are different. So let's be economic partners. Let's have a voice chosen by and for Quebecers, an ally for Canadians as equals in front of Mr. Trump.
Monsieur Poilievre.
Only in Canada could someone start where I began and get to this stage. I was born to a single mother and adopted by school teachers who raised me to believe in the incredible Canadian promise that anyone who worked hard could do anything. That promise feels broken today. Many of you worried about paying your bills, feeding your families, or ever even owning a home. You're worried your kids are in danger. But I'm here to say it doesn't have to be this way. With change, we can restore the Canadian promise so that hard work gets you a beautiful house on a safe street under a proud flag. We can do it with hope for a change.
Hopefully.
Gentlemen, thank you for a very spirited debate tonight. 2 quick points before we go. Number one of you celebrated your 60th birthday yesterday on this stage. Yves-François Blanchet, bon anniversaire.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Secondly, you'll notice we didn't have to change the time of this debate because the Leafs already clinched the Atlantic Division title, and therefore we didn't need to move the debate to accommodate a hockey game. I'm getting back at my colleague who was in this position last night, and okay, go Habs go, that's fine. With that, we're done. Thank you, leaders, for being here tonight. We are just 11 days from Election Day, April 28th, but there are many ways that you can cast your ballot starting tomorrow at advance polls. If you intend to vote by mail, that deadline is April 22nd. Make sure to check your voter card for details or contact Elections Canada. This is your democratic right, and we hope you use it. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Steve Paikin. Good night from Montreal.
Thank you. Enjoyed that.
Bon anniversaire.
Hello again from Montreal, and welcome again to our special coverage after the English language debate, the final debate before voters have their say in this election. And thanks for joining us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. That building right behind me is the Maison de Radio-Canada. Inside is where the leaders just faced off. This is a landmark moment in the campaign. In just hours, 12 hours, advance voting begins. So this could be a crucial moment as Canadians weigh their options. And we're here to help try to
I don't know if they're going to have questions
make sense of it
like they did last night.
at all. So alongside me again tonight, mercifully, Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton and the host of Power and Politics, David Cochrane. So we just had a gander at that, 2 hours. What did you think?
Yeah, it went well. I had not a root canal, but they put a bone graft on. They cut my skin open, chiseled it down, put a bone graft underneath, and sewed it back up. Yummy, yummy for my tummy.
I would say, again, like yesterday, a very substantial.
I'm wondering if they're going to have this question period.
Of debate. I think if Canadians were tuning in, and I hope they were, to try and get a sense of where leaders stand on key issues, energy development, taking on Donald Trump, crime, they got really clear answers from those leaders tonight. But again tonight, and perhaps in a more pronounced way tonight, Mark Carney was the central target. Even when it was up to the leaders to ask questions, they all asked him a question. He even joked that he was going to ask himself a question. That's how focused everyone was on him. And even though the questions were sometimes challenging around tax havens or his position on different things, he really batted them back quite easily. I found
just
that
asking one of
the
my buddies
answers
that
were
works for True North Media that's there right now if they're going to have questions, so I'm just waiting back.
substantive, and he didn't seem to struggle with any of them. But I would also say that Mr. Poilievre had some good moments, particularly on the issue of crime. You may not agree with him that the notwithstanding clause should be used to deal with the issue of people who have killed multiple people. But he made a compelling argument about people, particularly in Canada's cities, who feel very concerned about a rise in crime, and that would have touched a large number of people as well.
Absolutely. The tough on crime message completely connects. Briefly, David, anything surprise you tonight?
Yeah, debates
no,
commission.
I don't think there's any real surprises.
has
I think what's interesting
officially-
is it's too early to know what this election will be about for Canadians, but we saw.
Yeah, so the debates commission, Rebel News. Watch this, my friends.
CBC want us kicked out. We're not leaving. The CBC were outraged that Mr. Cormier let us in. The CBC had 4 questions yesterday. Rebel News had 4 questions yesterday. The CBC thinks that's normal, and it's abnormal that we do it. Again,
was he talking to you about your accreditation asking questions, or was it about the incident here?
It was about neither. It was actually about
there's my buddy right there.
Paul guy in the CBC. Maybe Cochrane. Yeah, I mean, Cochrane wanted me kicked out. I ain't leaving. Cochrane's really thin-skinned. Talked to Rosie Martin too. I invited her to a challenge, and she declined. But that had nothing to do with it. Anyways, I want to get back to the journalism here, but it's a pleasure to be in the center of the attention. I want to give a shout out to my fellow independent journalist, Keem Bexton, proud alumnus of Rebel News. Lee's not associated with us, but I admire his independence. And I would like to encourage everyone who's watching. You can be a journalist. If you've got a phone, you're a journalist. If you've got a Facebook page, you're a journalist. Yes, it is, Judy. In fact,
independent journalists hire Trump and fundraise off of.
I don't know. You're a government journalist. Every single one of you.
No,
takes-
no. You're not government journalist.
If you get the government subsidy, you're a government journalist.
I'm not a government.
Who do you work for, sir?
I work for the Canadian Press.
Canadian Press gets massive grants from the government.
It's an admissions and funding.
You're literally wearing a liberal lanyard.
Because I follow the liberals. You know how it works.
You're independent. You're owned by the government.
Oh,
May I ask you
What do you
something?
think about the third-party advertisers that are supporting
Only your own media can ask you questions.
All right. Run away. Why don't you answer his question? What was his question? I actually didn't hear the question. I'm flattered to be here. Let me just say this. I think that journalism needs to be democratized. And I think it's sort of creepy that the enemies of Rebel News in the press gallery stop us from asking questions of politicians 99% of the time. Once every 4 years, we're allowed to put a couple of questions to these high priests of politics. And there's a total freak out in the press gallery. Like, seriously, it's like leap year. 15 minutes every 4-year season, we're allowed.
Oh.
Can you move your scrum now? We want to watch the debate. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
I love that Ezra called them high priest apologists. How absolutely fitting. And so this little scrum happened after Hill Times journalist Stu Benson lost his composure in the media center during the leaders' debate, and then Ezra held a discussion outside of the room in response to that, and then approximately an hour later, word spread that the post-debate press scrum had been canceled. So this is a longer clip, and I haven't seen it yet myself, so let's just play it, and maybe we'll play it out in full.
Yeah, after you guys threatened to sue, so that's why they got the 4 questions, because the commission.
You're making that up. You're lying again.
When did the CDC get 4 questions?
Yesterday.
Yes, after they had already told it to you because you threatened to sue.
You're lying again.
I'm not. Because you're like, don't you have a third-party advertising truck that don't take care of? How much have you spent on third-party advertising this election? Between Rebel News and Core Canada, companies you own both of, how much money have you spent to influence this election? I'm assuming in favor of conservatives. How much have you spent? Like, you're a journalist, you must be honest. So, Rebel News Limited, you've set up and registered under Elections Canada. Everyone else, you can go to Elections Canada right now. Every third party is registered. Search Rebel News for Canada, and you will see clear as day, as will Avant, as the owner of both of those companies. He has third party advertising trucks driving around this venue right now. It's owned by Rebel. It's owned by you. Sorry. The truck is for Canada, which is owned by you, which is separate from Rebel News, which is also owned by you.
Just mad.
One by one.
Control your emotions.
So, Ed, I'm just
You're out of control.
Speaking quietly doesn't make your things any less
You're
bullshit.
completely out of control emotionally. And your facts are completely wrong.
All right,
You're an
let's go.
embarrassment. What's your name?
Calm down, ma'am.
You're suddenly shy.
No, I'm Googling.
You're Googling your name? You are, tough guy.
Stuart Benson, Hill Times.
Student Benson, well, you're a disgrace to the Hill Times.
Oh.
And your facts are wrong.
You're a disgrace to journalism, buddy.
Actually,
Shut up.
I can do the job of one of me can do the same
look
job
at his
you really
laptop.
need 5 reporters to do. So, am I a disgrace, or is it all of the people you needed to do the job I do by myself?
Oh, wow.
Oh, crap.
Rebel News Network Limited, March 27th, registered with Elections Canada, name of applicant, Ezra Levant, mailing address, Edmonton, Alberta, T5JOK4. I wonder where that would be. T5JOK4, I wonder what that postal is.
Well, you certainly got a tiger by it.
Let's go check out For Canada. I wonder who they are.
He sounds exactly like you think he would.
Like a raving lunatic.
No, you don't understand.
I've heard
You
of
don't understand what you're looking at.
So shrill.
Yeah, you watching this week? The left coast.
Yes, the really exceptional work you're doing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Will you shut up?
I've heard ranting drug addicts on the
You're
street
out of control emotionally.
better behaved than this guy.
Tantrum boy. I'll call you tantrum boy.
That is
Tantrum boy.
unhinged.
Holy Hannah. I've never seen anything like that, to be completely
No.
honest. Like in a professional setting, never.
Well, it's not professional. It's entirely unprofessional. Look at how absolutely unhinged the laptop class becomes when they aren't given their
Holy
silver platter.
This
Yeah,
is
it's so
that was
true.
wild to watch. That happened while we were watching the debate, did it?
Yeah. hmm
Oh,
Yeah, that's
well,
the behind the scenes. Thank goodness that we took the steps that we took to send a team of rebels, just like everyone
no
else,
question.
just to even the playing field, because otherwise, those are the kind of lunatics that dominate the media space.
So, not to put too fine a point on it, but like dealing with the public education system in Canada is exactly like dealing with that room.
Oh,
It is the exact same energy. It's like either you abide by the groupthink, okay? Either you are a participant in the in the group project, or you are an absolute outsider who should not be tolerated and has to be removed at the earliest convenience. This of the authorities. That was wild to watch. But you know what? Thank God we sent 5 people. Like, thank God we had our whole team there to at least offer a tiny bit of backup. I mean, that was a man that looked like he could have got violent at any point. And while he's, directing the room to the website and telling them what to go look for, everybody go Google. Don't you think that that's a real good sort of snapshot of the corrupt Canadian press right now? Everybody go to the website and search these keywords, and then everybody say the same thing, and then watch. They will. This is how they work. There is no
journalistic integrity left in Canada. If you are being funded by the government, and Ezra did such a beautiful job, like pointing out that they are all funded by the government, unless you don't take money, unless you make an effort to make your own way as a journalist in Canada, you are corrupt by the government, and all of the people that you see here are.
Imagine for a moment that same energy was directed at holding government officials accountable, especially right now when it comes to Mark
on a night
Carney
where
and
we
his
should be
Beijing banking connections and his
the women that are considering voting Liberal right now, everyone who's already decided to vote Conservative, you know better. But the women that don't know Pierre, haven't heard him speak, have constantly been told he's a mean, scary guy and he's just like Trump. What they heard was a leader that sounds like he gets it. Sounds like he understands the challenges that you're going through. Carney didn't say any of that. Not at all. But Pierre...
If you can have a guy on there who you literally goes,
because he's the president of Quebec, bro.
No, I know. I'm good with that. Listen, I get it. I get it. I get it. I'm just gonna say,
separate.
Listen. I get how this works, and there he is sitting on stage, and he had the best lines ever. The way he attacked Carney is how Pierre should have attacked him
when
at
he
the start.
jumped in on Singh, and he's like,
it was awesome. It was awesome, and Jasmine's going, I would vote for him. He said it's a block, and he doesn't want to be prime minister. It's like, ugh.
And he had this smile. He also had.
He
this
did it with
smile
good
the whole
diplomacy too. So it was like that perfect
Even
balance.
his
that we've
broken
seen with
English was
Pierre
a bit
lot.
enduring. You're like, yeah, I don't mind it tonight. You know, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, well, he sounded like he was chewing on a baguette the whole time. But here's the thing: is you shouldn't have to say, "I want to be prime minister" to run. If you're running in a select area, or you don't have enough candidates to win, and you're not trying to be prime minister, you're just trying to do a party that represents something, you should be able to run on any platform you want, in any way. And if people are voting for it, then that's totally fair and totally on board. Like you gave Maverick a hard time over this same thing. And I'm like, you know what? If we had Tarek El Naga as leader of the Maverick up there, and they had a half dozen seats, I would want to hear what he has to say. Because it's not about whether you're going to be prime minister. It's you're a party. It's you're a party, and you're representing the people who vote for you. Even if it's that fucked up province that just wants everything for free and doesn't want any pipelines to pay for it.
Well, I agree with you, and I'll enter the PPC in just for a hot sec. They literally met what they were supposed to meet to be in this debate. From the last
That's why
election.
the Greens
and
got
then
kicked
they went blue loop. Whoops, nope, we're not allowing you on the stage. We're allowing old Jagmeet back on, and he's going to do exactly what he does. And they're like, nobody's voting for you. You suck.
I'm glad.
From what I understand, because I watch Frank Vaughn quite a bit, and he talks about the PPC quite a bit, and he said that Max didn't actually file the registration to be part of the debate. So even though they changed the rules after the fact, he didn't even enter it. So,
but see the word
I can
here
see him doing that.
Here's the thing: the irony in this whole thing is that we want people to be diplomatic, but it is precisely diplomacy that lost the debate for me today.
Yeah,
Canada,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Canada is not in a place like the policies that have happened over the past
friends, what did you think?
Now have been
People are
so
watching.
anti-charter, anti-diplomatic that for us to now stand there with a smile and
smile
was not what I think Canada needs. Now, I will understand in terms of strategy, you want to win a base and everything. Pierre Carney was stoic the whole time. He smiled like twice. Okay. But if I had to pick from the kind of personality, and believe me, this is not because of Quebec. If I could take
garbage for
if I could
K-Cup
take
pods,
Blanchet,
whole bean, or fresh ground coffee,
wash his
go
mind
to-
of all this Quebec sovereignty BS.
Don't worry, he's already brainwashed, dude.
I would
sovereignty.
make you know what I'm saying? Like if I wanted a prime minister today,
You want Blanchette.
I would want the character of a Blanchette who's not afraid to call out what you did.
Well, yeah, if
I have,
Blanchet
like-
actually cared about Canada like he cares about Quebec, I would actually be stoked on that guy.
But
I
don't
would
you
I would be
think-
like, I don't care if he's from Quebec. If he's stoked on Canada, bring him in. I'd like that guy.
Yeah, forget all
care
the
a
Quebec
little
stuff.
bit.
No, forget all the Quebec stuff. Sorry, go ahead, Jasmine.
I just find for me, and I try my best with this because obviously there's tons of things that each of you are saying that are I'm resonating with, and I'm like, yeah, I totally feel that way too. But I also am trying to think strategically, like you had said, like, you know, for Pierre to go off in some way, shape, or form, he would have killed it. We all know that. Like the few little attacks he did have there, I don't know if I'd call them attacks, but the little pushes that he did have were great, and we saw that. But I do think that the mass media machine on top of the Liberal Party as a whole has done such an excellent job at absolutely manipulating people into what they think Pierre Poilievre is versus what they think Mark Carney is.
I'm going to disagree with you there, and I'll tell you why I
Okay.
disagree with you. I
Go
disagree
off.
with you because Pierre Trudeau, who completely wrecked Canada and had John Turner belly button take over for him, when Mulroney was standing there, he didn't have to yell. He didn't have to smile. In fact, if you watch that, Mulroney didn't need to smile. And Pierre needed to take off that smile off his face for a second and be diplomatic and say, you have failed. And so this is where we're disagreeing. The entire mainstream media, who, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, Pierre Trudeau started this whole thing of funding all this money into the mainstream media. Were they more critical? Yeah, I'd say so. But all the polls were leaning to John Turner. If you would have watched the news at that time, it was all pushing that the Liberals are going to win and that the Conservatives are going to cut all the benefits and blah, 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 blah. You can stand there with strength and speak in a very serious manner. But I think what he just kept doing is appealing, and he came off soft. We need strength. We don't need someone to come off soft. And I'll make an argument, and none of you will believe me. I'm sure Clyde is not going to believe I'm going to say this, but Carney looked more stronger than Pierre today. He looked.
Yeah, his stance actually, absolutely.
Yeah,
and this is why
serious cutthroat. That's it.
Again, I didn't want to drive too hard on this one because I've been driving this one pretty hard for the past month and a bit.
Cool.
Pierre Poilievre has made a huge shift, and he's done it at the behest of his PR team. I started nicknaming him PR Poilievre, and in the hopes that the PR team or even Pierre himself might get the hint that this is not what people like.
Clyde just said that he was heckling through his 100,000 viewers when there's how many million, that they'd hear him and they would have changed their PR campaign. Come on, Clyde.
But they've just gone full bore with this. They kept going down that path. They keep shifting. Now today's somber Pierre because, again, it's the PR team making these decisions. It's not Pierre. We're not getting Pierre. People like Pierre. And of course, the media is going to say things like, you look angry, just to get him off his game. And guess what? It worked. He's off his game. He's not himself. Believe me.
I want to push back on that a bit.
Hold on.
Well,
I'll lay my plane right here. I'll lay my
right.
plane on this one.
Hey, everyone can argue at once.
Yeah, I'll lay my plane on this one. I'll lay my plane on this one. If Pierre would have come out and he would have been the Apple interview Pierre that we all have gotten to know, I guarantee you all those people that have been convinced that Pierre's just an angry guy would have been then looked at that situation and said, he's not angry, he's passionate. That's different. It's so much different than that. And that is what they would see. They would see that in that moment and they would have been there for it. And then they would have enjoyed that. So I think it's a big ball drop to go with the somber Pierre. I know what they're trying to do, but I just didn't think it worked.
You're right.
So
and Jasmine's totally right too, though. And she's about to make the point that I'm going to agree with.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to say something totally different now. No, I hear you, Clyde, and I completely agree with you there. And again, I'm trying to take I'm trying to take myself out of it as somebody who, like, I'm already sold. You already got me. And those of us here who are sold, we're already sold.
I'm less sold now because of the last month. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, gotcha. I
didn't hear
just
anything he said.
it's such a tricky place to be in at the moment, and largely due to just this absurdity coming out from the other side that it's like a multi-billion-dollar machine behind them of our taxpayer money, by the way. And it's just a really tough situation to be in because even, you know what, actually this just came to me. Even let's say like, oh, you know, you had everybody, we liked Pierre when he was that Pierre. Well, yeah, but then Carney was introduced, and if you want to judge by the polls, however much you trust those sample sizes, that's up for you to decide. But you know, if people were so quick to switch the other way, did people really like that Pierre, or was it just that they really hated Trudeau at that point in time? And so I agree. I love the feisty Pierre, and I think that's why he still has my support, because I know that that's him. And I'm also looking
not
at
right
all
at
of this
all,
from a bit
Shelley.
more of a strategic standpoint here in really giving the Liberals and the media machine less to go on when it comes to attacking him ruthlessly.
So if I can, I want to respond to that without disagreeing with you, which is something I rarely do on this show. But I will say that strategically, you are correct. Okay. If we were just looking, are you coughing? Okay, someone's coughing.
He's
That's me.
choking and coughing at the same time because all you do when you come on the show, Vesper, in the best possible ways, argue, and we love it.
Listen, you're not wrong, Jasmine. It's strategically the smart move with this entire farm bot machine coming
It's a
at
move. Don't assume that's a smart move.
Thank you. The thing is that when we would plan for somebody that, I don't know, was found with a prostitute, let's say, for a company, and we needed to, how do we change
Like Jack Layton?
Oh, well, I never did business for him, but yeah, okay. So the idea
What an
is that
idiot.
how
Does
do
he
I
know who
how do
Jack
I make
Layton
this
is?
so that he's palpable again? The thing is, and to Clyde's point here, where I'll completely agree with Clyde, when you are yourself and you become an overnight celebrity, not just in Canada, but across North America, maybe even in Europe, that should have signaled to you that and he wasn't angry eating that stupid apple. What he was very calm and was very assertive. And
Confident.
today, well, yes, if you want to add that too, of course. But the thing is, today I didn't get a confidence. What I got was somebody that was castrated from being himself at all.
Like
And
complacent
Yes.
with the situation you're put in.
So if I were in that room, in that war room with their stupid PR team, because I'm sorry, I would have said to them, here's the thing. We're at the brink of a decision, and there is obviously a dissatisfied population versus a very satisfied population. The fact that you didn't bring up Justin Trudeau's name more than once, twice maybe, the fact that you didn't bring up ArriveCan, the fact that you didn't bring up the SDTC scandal, you didn't have to necessarily go after Justin all the time, but you could have gone after every scandal for the last just 5 years. Okay. The fact that they found that the use of your Emergencies Act was deemed illegal by the Supreme Court of Canada. All these talking points. No. Let's appeal to the nice people. We are dealing with clowns after all. And I hated that. I wanted him to bring up, not because I want him to lose, Jasmine. I do see your point, but I would have said there is ample dynamite in all these talking points, and he didn't use it.
Well, that's why I was so.
It's the same
That's
strategy
why.
that lost.
Oh my goodness, Mr.
Julian-
Julian, do we need to rock paper scissors here? You know what? You talk, Julian. You haven't talked in too long. Go off.
I was just going to say it's the same strategy that lost the election for Tom Mulcair.
And the
essentially-
same strategy that lost it for Aaron O'Toole, and the same strategy that lost it for Andrew Scheer.
Like you can say, right? Like, I wish Pierre Poilievre was a person who was less confrontational, but you just are a person who's more confrontational, and no one buys it if you're being non-confrontational and just comes off as inauthentic and weak, as you say. Like, I think with people, you can't lie. Like, people always see through your bullshit, and
we logically need a bigger change than that.
which would be to give another party a chance to see what they can do for Canadians, in my opinion. I honestly believe any party is more deserving than the Liberal Party. They're admitting that we've been hurting, we can't afford food, can't afford housing. They admit that they have brought all of that on to us. They've been in power for 10 years, but they say again, this time we will fix it. When is enough going to be enough? We should all know by now that the Liberal Party doesn't deserve another shot, and I hope that people see that and go to the polls and vote for any other party that we can have actual change.
Okay. You know what? Now we got to go. We just ate Chris's time. I'm really sorry about that, guys. It was really lovely to see all of you. Thank you for being so open with us all the way along. It's been kind of fun. So back to Rosie and David. You know,
Nice to hear from a focus group. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep, for sure.
But pipelines. It comes up again and again. It came up every panel we did.
Yep.
And to that point, before we talk about it, why don't we hear a little bit of what was said about it tonight?
Well, Mr. Carney refused to answer the question about pipelines. Just the other day, he said that he doesn't necessarily think we need to build pipelines. And I asked Mr. Carney why he would keep in place this anti-pipeline law that effectively empowers Donald Trump to have a total monopoly on our single biggest export. Why would you not repeal this Liberal law?
I'm interested in getting energy infrastructure built. That means pipelines, that means carbon capture, storage, that means electricity grids. And here's how you do it. And we've already moved in the first month. Cooperation agreements with the provinces. Guess what? We are a federation. You need to cooperate with Quebec. You need to cooperate with the provinces. You need to get First Nations and Indigenous people buy-in.
Okay. What do you make of that exchange?
I think it's illuminating if this is an important issue for you, energy development, which also goes hand in hand with climate change, which also was talked about.
And tariffs, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah. And Pierre Poilievre and many people in Western Canada believe that C-69 is fundamentally a block of any pipeline development going forward because the assessment is so heavy, it is so onerous. So that's he would get rid of that immediately, and he says, bring in and have projects developed very quickly. Mark Carney has a different approach. Not only did he set up an energy corridor with the provinces and his first days as Prime Minister, but he also is promising a one project, one review. What does that mean? Well, if a province has done a review that the federal government is willing to accept, then it will give it the red stamp and get it going as well. So Mr. Poilievre doesn't believe that's possible as long as C-69 is...
Oh, you guys are out. You touched me with that. I did not touch you. You're a liar. You're a goddamn liar.
You're a liar.
Oh yeah, nice try, guys. You just nice try. Look what you're doing. Police.
Go back to the first one.
No, the
Go back
police
to that
is
first one.
by the Liberal.
How long is this?
Who was that?
Terry Guillon.
Terry Gillan. Terry Gillan.
What are you gonna? Bro, you guys are out. You touched me with that. I did not touch you. You're a liar. You're a goddamn liar.
You're a liar.
Oh, yeah, nice try, guys. You just nice try. Look what you're doing. Police.
No, the police is up by
Stupid, man.
Liberal.
Just deal with it in the backyard.
I hadn't seen it yet. All I had seen was Lincoln telling me that they had been assaulted and that they weren't allowed to come back and to make sure that I grabbed their stuff. I didn't know the extent of it because I was just quickly throwing in my earbuds and coming to talk to you. I hadn't seen that. That's a member of the Prime Minister's press team.
What?
Terry Guillon is the senior lead media advance, the office of the Prime Minister of Canada.
Assaulting our guy.
Who has repeatedly acted so brazenly and physical with Rebel News journalists. He has a long history of this behavior.
Yep.
Oh,
and you can
my God. Thugs.
Again,
They're thugs.
Thugs. Our guys
What do
are
you
just
think
out
of
there
that?
doing their
Did you see that, guys?
And these guys in this room, they were the victims tonight, apparently, of our presence. And this is how we have to work. We're getting yelled at. The Hill Times guy losing his marbles on Ezra across the room. Terry Guillon assaulting our people outside. We're
He needs to
calling for the police to help. The police aren't coming. That guy is unhinged. I hadn't seen that before.
he needs to be charged. Number one, he needs to be
Who's
charged.
the
But then
guy
again,
that like
we're
looks
relying.
like he has a full face
And
mask on?
that they weren't allowed to come back and to make sure that I grabbed their stuff. I didn't know the extent of it because I was just quickly throwing in my earbuds and coming to talk to you. I hadn't seen that. That's a member of the Prime Minister's press team.
What?
Terry Guillon is the senior
What?
lead media advance, the office of the Prime Minister of Canada,
Assaulting our guy.
who has repeatedly
What?
acted so brazenly and physical with Rebel News journalists. He has a long history of this behavior.
Yep.
Oh
And you can
my
God.
God.
The woman's gonna pop out of her
thugs.
shirt.
Again,
They're thugs.
Our thugs. Our guys are just out there doing their jobs. And these guys in this room, they were the victims tonight, apparently, of our presence. And this is how we have to work. We're getting yelled at. The Hill Times guy losing his marbles on Ezra across the room. Terry Guillaume assaulting our people outside. We're
He needs to-
calling for the police to help. The police aren't coming. That guy is unhinged.
Oh,
I hadn't
shit.
seen
He-
that before.
Dark black guy.
He needs to be charged.
that guy
Number
had a
one, he
fucking
needs
face
to be
mask.
charged. But then
Who was
again,
that guy?
we're relying on the same police
Who?
that arrested.
Assaulting our people outside. We're
He needs to
calling for the police to help. The police aren't coming. That guy is unhinged.
Watch this.
I
There's a
hadn't seen
guy
that
here
before.
that's fully.
He needs.
Who's that? Who the fuck is that? Is it a cop? Is it a cop? It's got to be a cop.
To be
That's
charged.
not okay.
Number
Well,
one, he
it's
needs to
also
be
not
charged.
okay,
But then
Shelley,
again,
for
we're relying
the Rebel
on the
News
same
guy to put the
police
camera 3
that
inches away from
arrested
his face. I would have
Natasha
sought it out
Graham
too.
earlier this week. So what are our what are we thinking is going to happen here? Like, Canada is not a safe place for independent journalism. It is not a safe place.
Absolutely not.
Obviously, look, I cannot believe that that's part of the Prime Minister's press team.
Oh, shush.
Like,
Shush.
Is in place. Mr. Carney says it is. These are pretty different views. Even if they both say they want pipelines, they're both going to go
That's the
about it
Prime
in
Minister's
different
media
ways.
bullshit.
And I would say on the other flip side of that, then Mr. Carney is keeping the industrial carbon price in place. Mr. Poilievre is not. So that also gives you a sense of where they're trying to put the climate change and the fight against climate change. I don't know that one is better than the other, but certainly they are both committing to big projects as a response to your point, Donald Trump, and the fact that this country needs to start doing something dramatic to grow.
Interesting, though, to hear Blanchet say, hey, look, in 3 or 4 years, Donald Trump won't be there. I mean, barring some sort of constitutional amendment we're not yet aware of. But there won't be a new pipeline. That there's a long view that has to be taken.
Yeah, but if the lesson from Donald Trump, and I think this is it, if the lesson
Rosemary, yuck.
The only way forward is the truth. And
So I believe the polls. Me and Vesper have had this discussion lots on the polls and where they sit. And you're like, well, how do you get a correction? Well, you have the knockout punch, and it's in English. And here it is. Here we go, folks. Here we go. And you waited all night. And a couple of times there was glimmers. There was glimmers. And you go, who won the debate? Well, the most common sense thing that was talked about all night was Pierre Poilievre every time he opened his mouth, for the most part. Like, overall, he won the debate. But when I walk out of this room and people go, how was the debate? I'm going to go, I don't know. It was like, I mean, like, it's 2 hours of...
Neutered.
Yeah.
The debate was neutered.
I really appreciate that Mulrooney moment. I really do. And I think about it every time I pay the GST.
Yeah.
Every
well,
single
Julian.
I think the knockout punch for Carney was Carney himself.
Him
Like,
walking into the rake.
He just really sucks. I mean, he was just really and that's the main story of the debate. Is like, it can no longer be ignored that Mark Carney sucks, looks weird, and is really obnoxious and full of himself. And like, this was just like,
his pompousness was really present today. He spoke with like a patronizing tone the whole time.
If I was the Conservative Party, I would just make like clips, just like mashups, or you guys use the word mashups in my mind, but Mashups was just like Mark Carney's hand movements just being really
Mhm.
annoying. Like that was
And then
really
we'll
fun.
also compare them to like Donald Trump or something, and we'll say, "How can you stand up for Canada when all you do is copy Trump?" Reverse psychology. See,
That's well, I mean, we both spouted it out at the same time. And we're like, that's exactly Trump's policy on tariffs. Interesting note, guys. We got over 11,000 people watching us. The
Awesome.
only people who had more people watching live, and they're done now, was CBC.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Most
stream
of
on
them
the
were
internet.
most of
So I
them
had
were
one-
probably bots, anyways. So
So I had one comment from the chat that I wanted to bring up. Chris says Blanchett won the debate. My thoughts are that every province should be a sovereign nation within the federation. So,
yeah,
based on that.
Well,
but then we would have to have like every province represented in the debates if that's the case.
I am moving out of Manitoba if that is the case.
Yeah, what do you guys even care about dental care?
Ouch.
Well, the other thing, Clyde, to your viewers' thing is that, or comment, is that the Quebec story actually is a really big story. Probably, like, if the Liberals lose in Quebec, they lose. And it really does, like, right now, I think they're doing well. But if that changes, that could totally shift the dynamics.
May I share something that you could share on the screen? I don't know if you guys can do that. If I send you something to
Is it your dick?
Whoa.
Whoa. Can we Christian this a little bit?
It might be mine.
Okay.
It's 2025 after all.
All right. Yeah, throw it at me.
Always,
Throw it at me back.
always the women. It's
I've
always
been
the women.
practicing my windmills.
Oh
I just
boy.
dropped it in the chat just so you can see it. If you want to know what the biggest Montreal newspaper had to say from the Journal de Montréal, look at what they say. So if Julian, you asked about Quebec.
Whoa! Yeah.
Wow.
This
Holy
this
cow.
is the biggest newspaper in Quebec, in Montreal specifically. And look at what they call them. If you go down, look at what the person that's reporting on this says that the Liberals were like. If you go down, look what they call. Hold on. Go back up a little bit. Go back up. Yeah. Okay. You're going all the way up. I just said go down one. Just one. All right. Look at the last paragraph, too. Just read the last paragraph.
Okay. As Genevieve Lajoie wrote yesterday, more than 700, sexual offenders have received a Netflix sentence since November 16, 2022.
So what does that mean? You know what they're basically saying? They've all been given stay-at-home charges. They weren't put in jail. 700 sexual offenders. This is Quebec. They're talking about the Liberals and what they've done.
Yeah,
700 rapists are allowed to stay home and watch Netflix.
That's not really that many in Quebec because you guys are all perverts.
You know,
You're too kind with the accent, going with like the actual French France accent instead of the
I'm talking about a serious subject here, guys.
Hey, listen, this is the sort of thing that makes me frustrated, though, about even having, like, don't get me wrong, Blanchette was nice. He was a spitfire tonight. He kind of played the part that I wish Polyev had a little bit more. I have no idea why Jagmeet Singh was even there with his numbers right now. I understand the logistics. I understand how everything works there. But seeing things like that, and also, I'm flashing back to when they very, very briefly talked about climate change.
All right, my friends. I think it's time. I need to go rest.
This is
story. Just bear with me here.
What's up with this?
We have so many super
is anyone here listening to me? If anybody's listening, I'd just like to ask, what's up with this lady that's working at Rebel on the right with the blue shirt? She has got looks like she's on a motorbike and her shirt's buttoned undone because the wind's blowing, but she's got the big breastises and her hair is just hoofty up there and she's not wearing a helmet for her motorbike. I don't know, I just said that. Anyways, my friends, God bless.